Welcome to the X Shack. On this episode, we'll be talking about Powers of 10, number 5, written by Jonathan Hickman, featuring art by R.B. Silva, and colors by Marty Garcia. Warning, spoilers are ahead. All right. Come on into the X Shack. Take a seat and let's discuss this week's X book. As you heard, we'll be talking yet again about Powers of 10. Here we are. We're almost at the end of this saga, and things keep heating up. So we start this issue with the meeting between Professor X and Forge, where they discuss the new design for Cerebral. So Professor X has an idea for this new Cerebral. We learned in the last issue of House of X exactly how this new head unit works, as far as being able to download the minds and memories of mutants around the planet. And they go through the whole process of how this would theoretically work. Professor X has some tricks up his sleeve, and they have an idea. We find out that there are several backups of the memories of these mutants to kind of prevent from losing anybody's consciousness or losing what is being described as their essence. We also find out that Forge will have to create some new technology, which isn't too hard for Forge. We also find out that Professor X, of course, has to keep backing up the minds of these mutants, and that when he does the major backup, it takes about a couple of hours, and then there's another backup that takes a couple of days, and that it is possible to fully back up a mind, and it's alluded that this body that he's in now, the one that we see walking around, is quite possibly a resurrected body that he did for himself. So he may have been the first test subject for this. We don't know yet, but it kind of insinuates that is the case. I know there's some speculation out there, especially since we haven't seen Moira in a little bit. So we'll have to see how that factors in. And we also see that Professor X comes off a little sinister during this meeting. Like, there's a couple of panels where he looks pretty maniacal. We also see how the meeting went with the recruitment of Emma Frost. Of course, Magneto and Professor X both went to meet with her to talk about setting up the Krakoan government, and she's against it at first because she was there on Genosha. So she kind of tells Magneto that he should know, of all people, this is not really a good idea. They outline their plan, and she's kind of for it, especially when they mention that there could be some hefty profits in it for her. We also see that they're offering her a seat on the council. This is where we find out how the government will be set up for Krakoa, or at least the initial government. There will be a council of, I believe it was 13. And we'll get to that in a little bit. It's a little bit more than 13, but the major council is 13. They offer her 2 seats, but she has to recruit Sebastian Shaw back to the Hellfire Club so that he can handle any off-the-books Black Ops type things that they may do. She agrees to this reluctantly, but she says she's going to actually need 3 seats instead of the 2 that they offered her. We then flash forward to the future, 1,000 years into the future, and we get the answer from the Phalanx. It seems that they have agreed. However, it may not go quite the way the mutants are expecting it to go. We see that there is a hierarchy to the way that these populations, or the way that these groups or these planets actually operate, and that once you move beyond the physical, essentially you become a world mind or a world unit, and you become a black hole. So black holes in the universe are supposedly, in this explanation, actually civilizations that have moved beyond the physical. And we also find out that the Phalanx are actually working for somebody, or there are civilizations over them that they actually fear. And there's a whole breakdown of how these different civilizations operate. Some of them are grouped together. It seems that we're going to be seeing possibly some new threats even bigger than the Phalanx or some kind of unimaginable beings in the near future. But real quick, back to this council. So the council is 12, and the remaining two seats, the 13th and 14th seat, are actually Krakoa has a seat, and then of course Cypher does, because Cypher is the interpreter for Krakoa. But as of right now, we know Professor X, Magneto, Sebastian Shaw, and Emma Frost are all on this council. It has not yet been revealed who the remaining seats are. But of course, it's going to need to be high playing characters or high playing mutants in the world of X-Men. I kind of feel like there's going to be a split between what we think of as heroes and what we think of as villains, but there's so many people that could end up on that council. I'm pretty sure that Sinister somehow will have a seat on this council, whether he's like some kind of a medical or scientific minister. I'm willing to bet that Apocalypse possibly could have a seat on the council. I'm not quite sure if they would want to have him on the council, but I'm willing to bet that this is going to be made up of strong mutants, or those who are considered to be, I don't want to say Omega level necessarily, but those who have played huge roles in the history of the X-Men. So it's kind of interesting to see how they have this idea for their government set up. It is said that this will be a temporary government until they figure out, other ways to maybe govern themselves. So we're not really sure about that. Another thing before, I don't want to forget this either, we also see the recruitment of a potential person who may have a seat somehow, or maybe a tiebreaker when it comes to the world's government. They go to meet Namor. Of course, Namor being Namor, turns them down flatly, tells them to come back when they're serious. But I'm willing to bet that he's going to be a major player later on. He may be a tie-breaking vote when it comes to establishing the nation. In the last issue, we saw that some of the other countries of the world do not really want to have the Krakoan nation. They don't want to acknowledge it. So I'm wondering if maybe Namor will play a role in actually bring like a tiebreaker to establish this nation for mutants. Overall, yet again, another great issue. Here we are, issue 5. There's 2 issues left in this story before we get into the other X books coming out. It's been a roller coaster ride. I'm still riding with it, still enjoying it, still love reading these and talking about them. I'm not getting too deep into things. I've just been doing the basics with a little bit of theories. But if you've been enjoying this, I appreciate you listening. Like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. Give me some theories or some feedback in the comments down below. And until next time, I will see you later.